It had been extremely hot all morning. On my way home from work, I got really dizzy on the sidewalk and stood there for a while, leaning against the building wall. When I finally snapped out of it, I stopped at a convenience store to have a cold can of Coke. The store that I came across first had a strange appearance, as if it was covered in a light pink fog. It's not good. I think my head is still faint from the heat. I grabbed the can of Coke I was looking for from the drink corner at the back of the store and stood in front of the counter to pay. A tall male staff with a yellow afro and a white mask stands in front of me and says with unfocused eyes, "Would you like it warmed up?" "What?" I asked back. The afro staff repeated with an annoyed look in his eyes, "Do you want me to heat it up for you?" I took one look at the ice-cold can of Coke on the counter and then at the staff. I quickly paid, didn't even bother with the change, and ran out from the store. After that, I took the 7:18 p.m. subway as usual. It was a Wednesday, but the train was empty, and I sat down in the middle of the seat row. It took about 30 minutes to get to the station nearest to my apartment. I was tired from the day's work, so I began to doze off with my arms crossed. I think it was after a short while that a stranger suddenly asked me, is the seat next to you vacant?" I thought I heard a woman's voice. Startled, I looked up. A skinny woman with shoulder-length black hair wearing a white mask was standing in front of me with anxious eyes. I involuntarily looked to my left and right. No one was sitting on the connected seats but me. Not only the row I was sitting in, but the entire train carriage was completely empty. This time the woman said, "I'm exhausted because it's been so hot today. I just want to sit down." She began to complain with a face like she was about to cry. I hurriedly said, "Yes, please sit down, ma'am," and shifted my body slightly to the left side. The woman sat down next to me on my right, bowing her head repeatedly, saying, "Thank you, sir. Thank you indeed." What is this woman? Is she crazy? There are so many empty seats around me. No, wait. Maybe she's trying to steal something from me? I put my bag back on my lap and shifted a little bit away from her. I glanced at the woman every once in a while, but she just sat there with her head slumped. Eventually, I got to my station and went above ground. Outside, relying on the dimly lit streetlights, I walked down a dark alley with block walls on both sides. Then, I heard a strange sound coming from behind me. Clang, 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 clang. What is it? I thought, and casually turned around to look over my shoulder. About 300 feet behind me was a man in a gray suit and a white anonymous mask. He was walking, swaying left and right with unsteady steps as if he was drunk. He was dragging an iron pipe in one hand, one that's long enough to reach the asphalt and grind as he walked. Clang, 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 clang. I turned corners again and again to lose him, but the man still followed behind me. His pace was becoming fast, apparently staring at me with his two eyes wide open, like I was some kind of his prey or something. The distance between us was getting shorter. When I turned around again, the man was raising the iron pipe in his right hand, aiming at my head. Ah! I let out a scream and started running. Soon, my apartment building came into view. I ran into the entrance, gasping for air, and instead of taking the elevator, I chose the stairs. I ran down the third-floor corridor, unlocked my front door quickly, locking and chaining it behind me. I leaned against the door to catch my breath. I could feel warm sweat pouring down my forehead and some into my eyes. It stung. My heart was going crazy from both running and fear. What was the deal with that guy? I murmured to myself and sat in the doorway for a while. Finally calming down, I got up and went to the bathing room to take a quick shower. Feeling refreshed, I sat down on the sofa in the living room, downed a cold beer in one gulp, and took a sigh of relief. I looked at the LCD TV screen on the wall in front of me and saw the announcer, a serious-looking man with messy hair, tied up on top of his head, reading an article on the news. The record-breaking heat wave that we have been experiencing every day has caused many people to suffer from heat stroke and to be transported to emergency rooms across Japan. Some hospitals in Tokyo are already full and could not accept anyone anymore. I guess when it's this hot, maybe people go crazy in the head. I chuckled weakly as I remembered the convenience store staff, the subway woman, and the man I had encountered on my way home. After watching TV for a while, I started to feel sleepy, so I moved to my bedroom and crawled into bed. I had turned on the AC for every room beforehand, so the room was quite cool. So refreshing. Soon after, I fell into the pleasant embrace of sleep. How long has it been since then? I was awakened by the sudden ring of the doorbell. The screen on my cell phone showed me it was still past a little after 9 p.m. Who comes at a time like this? Better be important, I think to myself. I reluctantly got off the bed and left the room, scratching my head as I walked to the front door at the end of the hallway. The bell rings again. Yes! Who is it? I glared at the metal door, still rubbing my eyes open, and asked who was there. But no answer came. I peeked through the door scope with a confused look. It was the guy wearing an anonymous mask that followed me with a metal pipe. He was standing right outside my door in the hallway. The man pressed the doorbell button next to the door again. I ask him as I bring my face close to the door. What can I do for you, sir? After a while, I heard the man's low, muffled voice. This is my house. Come again? I looked around. On top of the shoebox was a familiar cat ornament that my younger sister had given me. On the ground were my familiar sneakers I always wear, and the leather shoes I wear to work. It was definitely my house. I was sleepy, but there was no mistake. I replied to the man outside, I think you must have misunderstood something. This is my house. Suddenly, the man said in a frustrated voice, Sir, I think you've... He didn't even let me finish my sentence. Don't be ridiculous. This has been my house for a long time, he shouted, and started hitting the door. Stop it! I'm calling the police! I shouted. The man banged on the door one last time with force, spit on the hallway, and walked away. Relieved, I returned to my bedroom and lay down again. My head began to spin, and eventually, I fell asleep. I jumped from my bed for the second time after having a strange feeling. The time was well past 1 a.m. It was by the sounds as if my room was undergoing construction, something destructive and very loud. It seemed to be coming from the living room. Getting on my feet to see what was going on, I went out to the hallway, opened the door to the living room, and turned on the light. As soon as I saw the scene in front of me, I couldn't believe my eyes. Was I still dreaming? The glass of the sash door at the far end of the room had been broken, and a man was standing in front of it. Numerous pieces of glass were scattered on the floor at his feet. It was the anonymous masked man, holding the metal pipe in his right hand, looking straight at me, crunching glass pieces as he turned his body in my direction. "You are trying to take over my house, aren't you?" The man muttered to himself, slightly swaying left and right, and began to walk towards me. I let out a scream, turned around, and started running down the hallway. I was at my front door unlocking it. I don't care if I'm in my pajamas, nor I didn't have any shoes on. I was out of there. But the man was surprisingly quick, instantly catching up with me, and swung his steel pipe at the back of my head. With a dull thud, I felt an intense pain, as if a high-voltage electric current had struck my head. In an instant, my eyes went black and I fell straight to the doorway. The man mounted on me, shouting, chicken show," and swung the iron pipe down to my head a few more times. Eventually, I began to feel no pain, and a pale pink haze began to form in front of my eyes. It was a certain day in August 2023, which marked the hottest day on record in Japan. Suzuki, a 33-year-old office worker, was found unconscious by a passerby at around 7 p.m., leaning against the side of a building wall on the sidewalk in a shopping district. He was on his way home from work and seemed to have gone limp from the day's extreme heat and fatigue. He was immediately rushed to a nearby hospital, but was pronounced dead before 8 p.m. The cause of death was severe heat stroke. He was said to have been tormented by horrible hallucinations right up to the moment of his death, and have been groaning unintelligible words until the very end. And to the next news.